What we actually need in this country is we need to make sure that we have expensive food so that we can give social grants to the poor people who can then use their social grants to pay for expensive food. Make it make sense.
So here's the lowdown. The DA wants to remove VAT from a lot of food so that they can help the poor. That's what politicians love to do, help the poor, which is why they create so many of them. And then the ANC said to themselves, listen, we can't remove VAT from more food because that VAT allows us to give social grants to people. So if we remove VAT from food, we can't raise the money to give out social grants. So therefore, we're going to make food and keep food far more expensive for the poor so that we can give them social grants with the VAT that we raised from their expensive food. In commie logic, that somehow does make sense. I'm not a commie, so it does not make sense.
No, it doesn't make sense because effectively what they've said is we can't give the poor cheap food because we need to give the poor 350 and we can't give them the poor 350 if we give them cheap food. But theoretically, you wouldn't need to give them 350 if you gave them cheap food. It's kind of like circular logic, this really. So, I mean, obviously the ANC ministers have said, well, we don't really want to give people cheap stuff because then we can't collect tax. And then that will be less money for us to steal. So, yeah, if you ever wondered why we have to pay loads of tax on essential items, it's because the ANC need to eat. However, the ANC aren't really that interested in whether the poor get to eat. Even though when you ask the ANC, why are you eating so much? They go, we're not. It's because of the poor. We want to help them. 350 grants and whatever other bullshit they talk.
Even worse than that, the Finance Committee in Parliament has said, no, we should have zero-rated VAT foods to help the poor. But here's the thing. Here is the nefarious reason why the ANC doesn't want this. The ANC wants to take credit for relief, right? They want to take credit. They can't take credit if food is cheaper. They can take credit if they give you 350. That is the only reason why the ANC is happy with the status quo. It's like this guy I was listening to over the weekend in a podcast. He was explaining what a state does. A state is about gaining as much power as possible in case you get attacked. The ANC is very much the same thing. How do we attain as much power as possible, knowing full well it's only for our benefit? And this is how you do it. You don't make food cheaper. You just make targeted poverty relief through grants available to people, because then you can take credit for it. That's the only reason why they don't want to do anything about this.
If we were to be logical about this, we would actually have to say people actually have to use their brain and think about policy in a logical fashion. Let's use the example of the Good Party. You know, the party is good for nothing. Patricia de Lille looks like she's about to lose her parliamentary MP seat. Well, in order to combat that, she basically said, well, if you elect me, the Good Party, I'll give you a basic income grant of 999 rand. We can't afford 350, but we can afford around 1,000 rand. Why do you suppose she's done that? Is it because of the poor? Or is it because she really doesn't want to lose her parliamentary MP perks?
Yeah, I mean, the problem with democracy, especially in South Africa, it's become a grift, right? Like, you vote for someone because you get benefit from it. It's not because the country benefits or because, all these other utilitarian things we think about when we vote for someone. We vote for someone because what can I get out of it? Give me. What's the give me mentality in all of this? Like, the Good Party is just a shameless ANC knockoff that was created to attempt to create a party for coloured votes, and those coloured votes will then vote for the ANC through the Good Party. It hasn't worked out because Gator McKenzie's Patrick Alliance has come in and destroyed the Good Party everywhere it has been found. But what you're starting to find out is that the ANC wants to remain in power at all costs by strangling the private sector, increasing the public sector, and then to the victims of the strangling of the private sector, just give them little scraps off the table of corruption so that they do not revolt against the ANC. It's sort of the end times for the ANC and this grift. I don't see them having any ideas, any way of solving this issue. They're just like it's a hostage scenario. The poor have guns to our backs. Let's just feed them things before they load them. That's what it seems like to me.
But the logic still doesn't add up. Let's tax people more money so that we can give them some of this back in the forms of social grants. How about just don't tax me, and then you don't need to give me money? How about create jobs and stop giving me a grant? How about just make food cheaper, petrol cheaper? Stop taxing us so that you can have a nice new car. That would probably make most of the poor more happy than 350. But that's just my opinion. Oh, what do I know? I mean, the ANC is the one in power.